And we still got the third wheel in the clog, which is Sheldon Taylor. He'll be joining us shortly.
Hello to all our loyal viewers out there and to our new ones. Hope you're
Yeah,
enjoying the regular podcasts that we're bringing you.
yes, definitely. And as I said, I know Sheldon will join us shortly, but there's a slight confession that I have to make just before we start, and that is that I think it was only you that got the memo when we did our top 20 favorite producers
I
because
think so.
I
I think
think
so too.
I
No, I
think
think
I
Sheldon did. I think Sheldon did. I think
no, because we had both Sheldon and I had the same top four. We had the same top four, and uh, and we all said Teddy was our favorite, but we started to rank them based on just general opinion. And so I think if I had an opportunity, it boggled my mind that I wouldn't put Teddy number one and everyone
maybe
second.
it could have been renamed the top 20 greatest R&B producers of all time.
Yeah, I'm surprised I put David Foster over the Trackmasters as
You
well.
didn't
So
put over the Trackmasters. You just put
I
David
didn't. I
Foster.
put him in. I didn't put the Trackmaster. So
But on this podcast, I'm expecting some of your favourite unsung David Foster productions.
yeah. Hey George, thanks for joining us this evening, and thanks for everyone else that's joining us. While Sheldon starts, so tonight, guys, the topic we have is um, our top three classic albums that got overlooked. These are hopefully New Jack albums, but actually albums that we thought were really good, but just didn't get the right push or promotion or didn't do as well as it should. Various reasons could be various reasons. But while we're doing it, it'd be great as always that you guys take part and put your top three albums that you think didn't get the push or success that it deserved. Maybe could have bad promotion, a record label, wrong singles, or whatever the case may be. Hey Phil, how you doing? I'm always glad to see you, Phil. Yes. So, so before Sheldon joins in, just a few updates. Anything on your radar, Stevie?
I was just seeing Teddy Riley's IG Twitter post today.
Okay, what did he do?
I don't know, is he feeling left out of this 50th hip hop years of celebration? He seems to be wanting a bit of validation. He put some. I mean, it was a great post, and everything that was said in it was bang on about what he's done over his career hip hop wise, and he's done a lot. And he was there in the mid '80s, so and we know that the Teddy Riley fans, your real hip hop, classic hip hop fans know about Teddy Riley, but I think maybe this newer generation, I don't know how new, maybe the last, say, 2 decades that have been brought up on, say, Trap and Jay-Z, maybe they don't know. So maybe he's just putting it out there that, hey, this is what I did. Been around a long time. Give me props and fair play to him. Why shouldn't he?
Well, I think I mean, most people, if you think of Teddy, you think of New Jack Swing, and then you forget the stuff he did with Kumo D, and then I guess you can forget the fact that Kumo D was really a real battle MC back in the day. Stuff he did with Rap New Generation, Big Daddy Kane, and so he was going almost head to head with Marley Marl. Stuff he did with Heavy D and the Boys, but I think because for those hardcore Teddy fans, we remember that side of him. And actually, Teddy would say he was just he was into hip hop, and also the show with Dougie Fresh. But I understand that same times moved on, and he moved to New Jack and stuff. And I think it's easy to forget his role in hip hop as well. Hey, Colin, great to see you. So Phil's already started. He's already put down she's named putting down her albums that she thinks were overlooked. She has Joe's Double Back. She's a big Joe fan, and also she's mentioned Profile's first album.
Strong records, very strong records. Them.
Yes. So those were, I think, especially Profile. What is
I mean, you
classic
could argue
BM
that he had the biggest party hip hop record in 1993, maybe Rump Shaker. You know,
Who's
Teddy,
that?
he had
Oh,
the
Ted. Yeah, yeah, Teddy. Oh, yeah. You forget that. Well, you forget that drum shaker, Rex and Effects are hip hop. You can't forget that. Don't forget Crimes from Master of Ceremonies. I like that early Teddy Riley joint. I don't think I know that one. And Oscar Flavor Level 3. One of My Girls. Any album by Smooth.
Level 3. Yeah, definitely one of the girls. You know what? One of the members of the girls, I spoke to her on IG when I did an interview with Men at Large some months ago, and I think she's trucking now. I think that's what she does. She's a trucker, but I think she may be up for an interview. Maybe I should reach out to her again.
Which girls are you talking about? You're not talking about the
Group called
Eddie. You're
one
not
of
talking about the girls with Cal West produced.
no.
Okay.
I'm just assuming that Old School Flavor means one of the girls who were signed to East West via Levert. They produced their album. Again, it's a very forgotten album.
Okay.
You know, which is again goes with the title of this, because I haven't picked 3 classic albums here. I picked 3 very unsung, underrated, very forgotten new jack. Well, 2 of them are new jack. You could argue one of them's post, but that I think should be brought to attention.
Okay, so we got Sheldon will join us shortly, but we'll start. And just before we start, I wanted to just to put out there was JJ Fad. They put out it seems as if Five Fab Freddy was on a radio show, and he says that Ice Cube wrote all of the whole album for JJ Fad, and then they retweeted that post with false on there. That there's no way Ice Cube wrote their lyrics for their tracks. I actually interviewed one who started JJ Fad, and she actually did say that they wrote their tracks, all the albums, before, and then they got signed by Ruthless and Eazy-E after they've already came out with the album. So it's quite unfair that when you're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, that you are taking away sort of the props of female MCs, thinking that they had a ghostwriter. Anyway, we've got Sheldon here, but Old School Flavor has agreed with you, Stevie. He says yes, one of the girls on East West.
One of the members has passed away as well.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Rather. Hi, Sheldon.
Yes. Hi, Sheldon. Yes, we can hear you. Okay.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you and everyone else. Yep, we're live, and we were holding off until we started our selection until you joined in. So glad you could make it.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. My bad.
No, that's fine. So guys, as I said, just keep putting down your top 3 albums that you believe were overlooked, that should have been bigger and stuff. So I don't know who wants to start with we're going to do one each and then talk a little bit about them.
Have you got 3 albums prepared, Sheldon? Oh, he's froze on us.
Oh, he's frozen us. Okay.
Yeah, I have 3.
Sheldon, do you have 3 albums?
I think he may have to jump out and come back in again, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I was having some issues. Let me go ahead and jump back out. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Phil's in Jade's second album. Okay. So we'll wait for Sheldon to come in and out. Okay, but Sheldon, I think you're in now. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm just gonna go ahead because I was having some issues getting in. Okay.
So,
I have my 3.
Okay.
You can start, Nnamdi.
Okay.
I'm intrigued as to what albums you've picked, because
okay.
I just figured you only really know the big albums, really. But after David Foster last week, you might give us a surprise here. Greatest unsung ballads are upcoming now.
Okay. Well, I'm okay, guys. So as I said, just keep coming in with the albums. Everyone knows that I love the Bobby album. That's one of my top three. And
Hardly
Colin says,
unsung, hardly
yeah,
unsung.
but that's hardly as well. You compare it to the first Bobby. So, but anyway, let me. So my first one is the oh goodness, this is a hard one. But I'm going to go with "Timeless" by Big Bob.
Ooh,
"Timeless" by Big Bob.
good
I was
choice.
very disappointed with the album. I blame Motown for this. This is when Motown under Kadar was pushing this whole neo soul stuff. If you listen to the Timeless album, it has all ballads apart from two, which was apart from one, which was "I Need Your Love," and unfortunately, an album that was heavy in major ballads, they released the wrong single. They put it "I Need Your Love" with Heavy D and Queen Latifah, and it was just an average. It was okay, but it wasn't that great. And by the time they came out with Zoom, it was like, okay, that's the Commodores remake, and they left so many classic ballads out. So that album they put a lot of work in it. It should have been bigger. I was really disappointed. Settle Down, my yeah, it had so many tracks. I don't know if you guys listened to it. I mean, I was so excited when I got it. It should have been so much bigger. Any thoughts on that album?
I just think you got to look at the year '97 itself. I think the big album that year was Erykah Badu. Everyone was going crazy over Badgerism. I do remember. I also felt '97. I was thinking there was a turning point in R&B that year, and I thought, what's going on? It doesn't quite feel the same. Something's turned here. We had right up to '96. It was an awesome period for R&B in the '90s, I thought. Then '97 came along. Maybe it was that beat that Timbaland came up with kind of slowed things, changed things down. But I was like, what is going on with R&B? But saying that, there was a lot of good releases in '97. And I think Big Bob, we all wanted an album in 1992 from Big Bob after he Like Your Style. So for me, it came out of nowhere, that album. It's like, wow, Big Bob. It's like, where's he been?
Yeah.
As soon as it came out, it had the single with Queen Latifah, which it did get club play. I do remember that record getting quite a bit of club play. And it just seemed to disappear, that album. Like you say, maybe the next single afterwards.
Yeah.
That's why I felt anyway. That was my memories of that album.
Yeah. Sheldon, anything? Oh,
Oops.
We don't seem to have volume from Sheldon. we do. Yeah, we can't hear you, Sheldon. Okay. So okay. Yep. We're getting caught saying Aaron Hall. Well, I think Aaron's debut album was a hit, especially when he came out with "I Miss You." So I don't know if this was on the song album, but it could have been bigger, especially when we saw what R. Kelly was doing.
Were you expecting a Big Bob album in '97 though? It was the same with Aaron Hall. Aaron Hall dropped. Did he drop his?
No, we can't hear you, Sheldon.
Yeah, Sheldon, you need to drop in and drop out again, my friend. Yeah, it's gone. I mean, Aaron Hall, was it '96? Did he drop an album? Was it '97? That came out of nowhere as well. Okay, let's see. 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay, because we can't hear you, Sheldon. Okay.
That's a song by Madonna and Justin Timberlake, that, isn't it?
Which one?
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. Okay. So while Sheldon is trying to get the sounds, because Sheldon, we can't hear you. Can you speak, Sheldon, to see if we can hear you? No, it looks like he's frozen. So I'll wait for him to drop in and out stuff. Okay. So what about yourself? Colin says he liked the Mr. Dalvin album as well.
So out of a rating of 10, what do you give that Big Bob album?
I think I'd give it a 7.5. I think my only issue with that, oh goodness, this Chuku is just given an album that I forgot about. Tony Thompson's debut album.
Yeah, there was some good stuff on that Tony Thompson.
Yeah, that was actually a good album. It was it actually had so many different producers and whole stuff. Yeah, that was a good album.
Remember the year '97 in terms of music? Can you remember?
No, '97 because I remember '96 was the whole Blackstreet and New Edition coming out. Then '97, yes, you talked about '97. You talk about but then we were moving in more into that hip hop collabs and some of the neo soul as well. Yeah, everyone agrees. The Tony Thompson album was pretty good. But I don't know why that first single it's probably the first single. They just didn't. They got the production and right, but they just didn't market it properly as well. Yeah.
I just think it was almost too late for Big Bub. Then I just think he had the momentum with the group today, with those both Today albums in the early '90s. Then he dropped I Like Your Style in '92, and everyone was going. All the New Jackers were going crazy over that record. Yeah. The momentum was there then to put his solo album out, or maybe a third Today album. It didn't happen, and then obviously by the time '97 came around, Kedar Records. It was part of K. Was it?
He was part of Kedar. Kedar was the CEO of Motown, so he was doing all the neo soul, and since he was doing the neo soul, he should have put the Bob album out much better.
Right, there was neo soul going on, and the jiggy, they call it the jiggy era, don't they? Like all them bad boy type remixes with the raps on. Them two things were kind of really like big on the black music scene at the time. That's what people were buying. So I think a straight R&B album by Big Bub, like you say, got overlooked. Anyway, I've gone for 1990, a pure New Jack Swing album. They're called Cool School. I've been watching this podcast. I've been mentioning these guys. Cool School. Their one and only album. Wrote me notes. I've come prepared. Don't worry. Right. Were originally called The Crash, and they were signed to Capitol Records. They were produced by Jesse Johnson, and they were made up of members Brian Tate, Dion Craig, who was the lead vocalist, Edgar. Oh, no, I need to take my glasses off here. Edgar Hinton, who actually worked with Karen White, your friend. Gabriel Acado, he was the drummer of the group. A guy called Gary James from St. Louis. He played guitar in the group and ended up going on to work with Bootsy and George Clinton. The album in the main was produced by Jesse Johnson and Keith Lewis. It was recorded in Minneapolis. It had in terms of New Jack Swing, the production was it had a heavy P-Funk influence. You could say obviously because it was recorded in Minneapolis, a Prince, a lot of the synths that were played in it had kind of a Prince feel to it. There was 3 singles. Let me see what the singles were released off it. The first one was My Girl, which is an incredible New Jack Swing record. The video's up on YouTube somewhere. Please go and watch Cool School, My Girl. And then there was You Can't Buy My Love, which is kind of like a rap New Jack. And it has elements of UK street soul in it as well, because that actually got picked up here and played. And they also released Waste My Time, which again was another up-tempo New Jack album. There was how many tracks are on it? There's 11 tracks. There's one ballad on this album, and it's a brilliant ballad. Now That She's Gone.
Okay.
Guys, this is an album you can play literally from start to finish. There's no skips. Capitol released 3 singles. There's a couple of videos on YouTube. It's just the suits. One of them's wearing, obviously for 1990, a polka dot suit. got the old polka dot suit in there. Maybe it's the area that they're from. I don't know. I don't know why it didn't take off from this, but it's a wicked album. You can actually listen to it on YouTube as well. The whole album, track for track, is listed on YouTube. So
okay, guys. So look out for. You said the group's called Cool. The Cool.
Cool School.
Cool School.
As
Okay.
as a name for a group, I don't think it stood the test of time. Well, I'll be honest. Oh, Sheldon's back.
No.
Is it School with an S?
Yeah, I remember them.
SCHOO?
SK.
SK.
SKOOL. Yeah. I know you guys kind of moved on, but Stevie, I was going to go back real quick with the Big Bob. Stevie was definitely on point when he said like 97 was. Yeah, Stevie was definitely on point when he talked about the transition, because they had, with Erykah Badu, were really D'Angelo, the whole neo soul was shifting. So it was either the neo soul situation, and then you had the R&B hip hop thing that Puffy was doing. So like you said, that, and I think Teddy was kind of like playing catch up.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
When you heard the I Want Your Love, that was kind of like in the vein of what the R&B, the hip hop, R&B hip hop interpolations, they were interpolating like songs from the past, even though he had been doing that before, but it was kind of in the vein of that. And I remember that video played a lot here in the States. And then when Zoom came out, it was really, really popular. It got a lot of play on the radio. The video got a lot of airplay, but unless Bob is here to really talk about it, but I really think that 97 window, probably some promotion issues, promotional issues, that where the album really got locked in it fell through the cracks, because there was no other singles that was on that album. It was almost like I didn't even know the album had came out until I went into the stores and I saw it.
Wow.
So there wasn't a lot of promotion in the States for the album. And I think that there was kind of some issues, because I remember Big Bub came out with another album in 90, it must have been like 99 or something like that.
Oh yeah, forgot.
I remember reading.
Yeah,
I remember reading the liner notes, man, and he was kind of angry. He was kind of like, a lot of it was out of anger in the liner notes. So I just think that it got lost in the cracks with promotions. Obviously, Erykah Badu was the one that was running through all that time, and then you also got to look at there weren't a lot of Motown groups that were coming out around that time. That's the transition from Andre Harrell to Kedar.
Yeah.
So there weren't a lot of Motown releases that were actually coming out. Think about it. Boyz II Men's Evolution album came out in 97.
Oh man, I didn't like that at all.
Major promotion going into that. So, that would be a good conversation, with Big Bob to kind of share.
Yeah.
Just after 96, I felt that major labels were slowly bailing out of R&B.
The merger thing was happening, and
a lot of stuff that was due to get released that didn't get released. There was a lot of groups that were losing the deals around then as well. There was thing I couldn't put my finger what was going on. And by 1999, I was seriously worried. I thought, weren't a great year for R&B.
It wasn't a lot of, on R&B's on that here in the States, you didn't really, it was almost like you had what Jermaine Dupri was doing, you had what Puffy was doing, it wasn't until it kind of like shifted. Carl Thomas was coming out toward the end of the decade, but I also too, rap music, man, was starting to come on really hard, to where R&B, even though it became a situation where the male energy was shifting toward, not from a performance standpoint, but from a fan base, males were shifting more towards R&B, and R&B was kind of perceived here in the States. It was almost like a female situation when you seen Genuine and all those Joe and all those people like that toward the end. Certain records people might have liked, but it was almost like DMX and Cash Money and everybody was out, and R&B started to kind of like lose a lot of momentum. As a matter of fact, Vibe magazine did an interview. They did an article and right around that 99, 2000 window, and an article was called Star Search. And they were talking about how Avant, there was a certain tier, besides Usher and R. Kelly, everybody else on the R&B side, on the male side, seemed to be like they were like anonymous. They had good records, but really just didn't have a presence the way Usher and R. Kelly was, which was a strange thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, someone he says I didn't like the evolution stuff, and you know it was probably the puffy. I can't let it down. I think that the image of Boys to Men dancing and doing and going away from their core ballads is probably what happened. And I remember I was in Milwaukee. I was living in Milwaukee, 97 to 99, and we used to have this summer jam and not summer fest or something like that. Boys to Men came to perform, and they were trying to dance to that track, and I just thought, and it was the worst performance I'd ever seen of them. So maybe it was Puffy, everyone going to Puffy, and it just
But you know what they
losing
want
their
to do?
core. So
Well,
go ahead.
Boys to Men now they shifted, man, because they really didn't like the babyface stuff. They didn't like the babyface really big, and I think, and then they were feeling like they could do the mix themselves. Really, babyface came in with the lamp, without like, we could write a better song than that. They really didn't like it, and I think it was a situation where they probably were feeling the pressure. You know, Jodeci, Boys and Men were looked at like it's unfortunate, like they were like off group, and they probably were feeling the pressure of Jodeci. And then in '97, after those big records, they got a big advance. They built their own studio, and they were trying to branch out and do other things, man. But I moved on, man. Evolution was okay, but kind of like it couldn't compare.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad album, but I mean, anyway, but yeah. So I don't want to get this sidetracked. So my first one was Big Bub. Then we had Stevie's Cool School.
I've got Sheldon. A feeling that Sheldon's going through his Devontae swing back catalogue, and he's going to pull something out from the man. Swing.
Yeah, man.
So what's yours, Sheldon?
My first one is Rob Tresvant's Sensitivity. That album, I mean, it's so like
it went platinum though. Right,
but
it wasn't overlooked though.
Yeah, but we got to look at beyond sales. It's just the fact that with that album, if that album would have came first, it's like Ralph Tresvant. His whole career is almost like that. His career is about timing. Had he came out before Bobby, he would have been the main superstar, and because if you saw the Sensitivity album, he could sing, he could dance, he could rap, he could do everything, man. So I think that Sensitivity was a big record, and then he came out with Do What I Gotta Do, which was cool, which was a great record. But I just think that timing of that record coming out, because remember that record comes out like I don't know which comes out before the Poison album or his record.
No, he came out after Poison, after Johnny Gill. They already hit.
Okay, there you go. So it's almost like the Wu-Tang. Like the Wu-Tang, the first round of Wu-Tang albums were great. It's like the first round of Wu-Tang albums were great, and then the second round, the momentum started to kind of phase out. So I think that energy, man.
What was bigger, the single?
Just like had he come out.
What was bigger?
The Sensitivity album did and then
the single on its own.
The Sensitivity album did.
Huge.
The single did like 1 million, and then the actual album did 2 million.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I love the album. Yeah, I do agree with you, Sheldon.
It was great.
I do agree with you, Sheldon, that he should have come out first, because he couldn't. With Poison was massive. Then Johnny Gill was big with his babyface stuff, and he came out with Sensitivity. It was like, oh, okay. It just felt like, oh,
really. It never felt like that. I just thought.
No, I mean, compared to the fact that the others had already come out with massive hits, it just felt like okay.
But Kaeph. I love Rated R. That's my favorite song on that album.
It's a beautiful album.
But I just think that everybody, Everybody else came out with the up tempos, and he came out with like the mid tempo.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was great. But I just think that the timing of that record, had he come out, but we also got to look at the time too, that Motown and MCA, they're linked. So when you look in terms of promotion budgets and all that stuff, think about everything that's coming out between 88 and 90 off Motown and MCA. So you got to look in terms of the money, promotion budgets, and so you got to have those rollout schedules. So that could probably play a part in it. Because think of it, is you looked at Don't Be Cruel, the New Edition record, the Guy record, all of these records, man, are rolling out like back to back to back to back. Not counting everybody else. Stephanie Mills is on MCA. Everybody's coming out, man.
Yeah.
So
it
is what it is.
It was
that's a
minor disappointment for me, and it was concerning one of the single releases. Now they released Stone Cold Gentleman, which as an album, I really like the album mix. Bobby rapping, they did performances. They did some club remixes, which were done by Foster McElroy, and those mixes for me just seemed to take the energy out of the track.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember that remix, but I was like,
I mean, that probably should have been his first single. Actually, I think that should be his first single because
Activity is a classic. It's still today.
It is definitely. But when the energy was so hot, it just felt like okay. It just felt like okay. So
you're saying then that out of the BBD album, the Bobby album, the Johnny Gill album, and then the Ralph was probably bottom. Would say out of them, say you did put them in a league.
Yeah.
Put the Bobby, then say Bell Boot DeVoe, then Johnny, then so you'd say that Ralph was at the bottom of it then in terms of.
I think the reason why I say that the quality of the album was great. I just think that at that time period, everybody was that sound, up tempo, New Jack Swing, everybody's dancing or whatever. But I think his lane was always the smooth lane. But if you look at what he did, he kicked the record off with a record called Rated R. He's rhyming and it's got the beats and stuff like that. But I think that it just kind of
too many producers, because there was a lot of different producers on the album. Maybe
no, that was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis did the bulk of that album.
Maybe if Jam and Lewis had produced the whole album, maybe it'd have been a whole lot different.
With the second album, no. Well, here it is though. The ballads were done by Timmy Gatlin and his partner. So
that was the first album,
right? The second album, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis only did like one or two records, and then Ralph and his people did the rest.
Yeah. I think maybe the first album then, which I'd really like, maybe it suffered from too many different, because you had Kyle West on there. You had Jam and Lewis, you had Timmy Gatlin. I'd have to look at the credits.
Yeah, I mean it was a really good album, but I think
they were on there as well. There was, maybe it was suffered that.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
Yeah, I think as you said, Sheldon, I believe it was the timing. It probably should have come out before, because Johnny came out hitting it hard, and by the time, BBD came out first, then Johnny, then by the time Ralph came, Bobby has already been touring around the world. By the time Ralph came, it felt like, we wanted more, we wanted something harder. Because remember, all of them came out with heavy songs like "Love You the Right Way" and "Poison," and Ralph just slowed it down, and it just felt. But anyway,
do you think that had something to do with? Was it Gerald Busby? He was on MCA and then he left to Motown. What quite happened there? Maybe
Gerald. It was him.
Because he was a priority artist, wasn't he, for Gerald Busby in the late.
Yeah, Gerald Busby. Yeah, Gerald Busby was with MCA, and then I think he moved on. To Motown.
Because I'm just going back to the new. If you go back to the New Edition story, there's a bit in it where I think it's Gerald Busby. He's talking to Ralph and he's saying, "Look, don't worry, we're going to get your solo project album started." And he didn't.
Yes, because he wanted to come out first. He wanted to come out early on.
Didn't happen, and then obviously Gerald Busby probably left MCA.
No, but see, Gerald was still at MCA when. No, sorry, he did. He moved on, and then Lewis Sowers took over, and Lewis actually took the fall for the Bobby album not being put, because he admitted he admitted to Teddy and the rest that he made a mistake. When he tried to release the Bobby album, he wanted to emulate the Don't Be Cruel album by putting the first two LA and Babyface tracks out. Then he thinks Teddy's songs would then take it over, but the mistake he made was the worst production that LA and Babyface have ever done was on the Bobby album.
I think
Humping Around and Good Enough.
And your own point with that is that because Teddy talked about when that album dropped, there was a lot of politics. He didn't go into detail, but I remember him saying there was a lot of politics regarding which singles were going to be released first on that album. If you look at it, the majority of the singles that had come out,
first two, were LA and Babyface.
Were LA and Babyface. It was Humping Around. Then they did Good Enough.
The two worst singles that they've ever written and produced. LA and Babyface.
Right. And then on top of that, they did remixes to those records, man, and it really was fair.
Yeah.
To Humping Around, but then with Teddy's records, then when they put out with Teddy, they became remixes, man, and which was bad because it took away the remixes, took away from the power of the record. But I think that by the time Teddy's records were coming out, that record, it was rolling into like almost 93, man. Because the Bobby album ran from 92 to 93. So when you look in terms of like That's the Way Love Is, and
Something in Common, it was a bit LA remix, and the keys are was after.
Yeah. And then think about it is that with that Bobby record, also too, is that when it dropped, I mean, Humping Around was what it was. But think about it is that those guys, they're doing Tony Braxton, so they're working, man. So even though those songs weren't the strongest, Humping Around was cool. Good Enough was what it was. But it was like the Teddy record should have went ahead and led first.
Yeah. How ended up talking about the Bobby album?
Yeah. No, I don't know how we switched to it. So let's okay.
I'll tell you what, 1990 as a year. What a year! There was just so much going on. Every week we're being spoiled.
Yeah.
5 or 6 albums, singles, remixes. Crazy. You compare it to say 2000. No comparison.
Yeah. But think about it, man. It's the music is moving into a different space. I think that the record, like I said, I mean, you took mine. Timeless was one of them.
Okay,
and of course, you took mine, and then of course, we've been talking about Bobby.
Yeah, but I haven't done my number 2, so we're gonna go around those.
Great thing is that I'll never clash with you two when it comes to choices. I'll never clash. Anyway, Nnamdi, what have you picked next? What have you got next?
I wish I could put the Bobby album because it is my favorite album, but actually,
you can't. I'm sorry,
I was torn with this one, but and for me it was. I don't know, and I'm going to make it out.
You told us it was 10. We was picking 10, but on this episode we're going to do 3.
Yeah, we're only going to do 3.
We'd end up talking too much.
Yeah, we're only going to do 3. So my second one is "The Pressure" by 911.
Ooh.
"The Pressure" by 911.
Ooh.
You know what? They took
ill-fated. The ill-fated 911 album almost comes with a poison chalice, whoever's involved with that album.
Yeah, you know what? They took songs from 911 and put it on the Guy 3 album, and they put it on the Blackstreet Family album. And when you listen to even the quality of Dizzo's vocals over Aaron at the time, or any of the guys at Blackstreet, as much as I love them, Dizzo's soulful voice, the whole project. I mean, it's a scandal of the politics that album didn't get released and pushed, around the US and stuff. Most of us as New Jack fans, we were looking for anything about these guys, and we heard about them doing in a magazine off a soundtrack, Nothing to Lose soundtrack. And then it was like, oh man, we can't wait for these guys. And then we knew they had an album, and then damn, it disappeared. But Teddy took these tracks and used them for the as I said, Guy 3 album, and used it for the Blackstreet album.
Also another level too. Look in the Water. That was on Another Level 2 album.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a shambles. I mean, it was a real shame. That they could have been such a big album. I mean, it just. And one of the things I liked about the album, if you listen to it, it's on YouTube. Just search 911 The Pressure. It was current, so it wasn't just staying in that New Jack Teddy lane, but it mixed around, so you could. It felt like a good R&B stroke New Jack album, vocally and everything. So I think that album would have been really big if they had given the opportunity to come out. Any thoughts, Stevie?
Well, that really takes me back to the days of the NGS3 forum. I've got lots of stories revolving around that album. Some I can probably tell, some I can't. But to be quite honest, we were never supposed to hear that album.
Wow.
Depending on which side of the fence you sit on, in terms of, you could thank this guy or you could, shoot him. I don't know. Some people were very angry with him. Some people were happy. But that album came out and leaked via, you got to thank a guy in South Korea for basically bootlegging it and putting it out. That's how that album, he managed to get a copy. I'm not telling you how he got a copy. That's probably, but I know the backstory to it. Let's just say this guy who was posting a lot on the NGS3 forum at the time he was a Teddy Riley fanatic. I mean, literally, he had everything that Teddy's ever done. He probably had a Teddy Riley doll in his house, Teddy Riley t-shirts. I'm telling you, he was absolutely fanatical about the guy, and he just wanted anything that Teddy had ever produced. And he ended up getting hold of this unreleased 911 album, and next thing you know, it appeared for sale on eBay.
Wow.
That's it, and it leaked out there, and it didn't even sound mastered to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but I think as disappointed as I am to hear that actually wasn't an official release. I'm glad it came out for because Mucho was able to share the story about the work they did and how quickly they wrote some of the songs. I mean, one track they wrote in 24 hours once they were told to rewrite it. So they put the energy and effort into it, and it's a pity that it didn't get pushed and packaged properly. Sheldon,
there was one other track that was left off. It was about 6 minutes long. It's an incredible record.
Wow.
Probably wasn't finished, but in terms of Diesel singing, just incredible. But the ballads on that album were incredible.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
some time, which obviously Guy ended up doing. Incredible record.
Yeah, they did Misery on the Finally album. If you listen to the Misery on Finally album, it's not even a third of how it is on the Pressure album with 911. Sheldon, did you get to listen to the album? Your thoughts?
I never heard the 911. I never heard it. All I heard was the two singles, the soundtrack record, and I never heard it in its entirety. I haven't.
The Cutie. Okay. Yeah, I'll get it over to you so you can. We'll bring another episode.
Okay.
Stevie.
I've moved to the year 1992 to an album that I feel kind of connects a lot of dots in terms of New Jack Swing and R&B for a lot of people who were starting or making their name at the time. But again, incredibly overlooked, incredibly unsung. They were a group called Modest Folk. The late question, Deborah Killings.
Oh, Deborah Killings. That's with Dallas Austin. She's from Atlanta. Okay. TLC and all that stuff. Okay.
There's so many. They actually, I've done a bit of research. There were two groups. There was all the same people, but in 1997 they were signed to MCA and they were called Princess and the Starbreeze.
Wow.
Same members. And then I don't know what happened with that album. Again, the album was very Prince sounding.
Okay, sounds like it.
Very, very 1987 sounding, like pop R&B, upbeat kind of. But I don't think the song stood out for me. But then they seemed to get a deal with East West Records, and let me go back to my notes. So you had members James Killings, who's obviously a family member of Deborah Killings, Donald Lee, you had Kenny Wright, who played piano on The Sims, you had Wesley Allen, who played The Sims. The producers on the album were a guy called Martin Van Bloxen or Martin Bloxen. Dwayne Wiggins of Tony produced a cut on there. And then you've got Joyce Irby. She did like 2 or 3 tracks.
Okay.
There was backup vocals by a guy called Theophilus Glass. If you really dig deep in your New Jack Swing, he was part of a group called Glasswork, and he was part of the group Highland Place Mobsters. There was 3 singles that were released from this. I think only promo-wise. Promise Me, Getting It On, which was produced by Dwayne Wiggins. Love All the Single Life, which has got a brilliant remix on it. Deborah Killings went on to record 2 solo albums in 2003 and 2008 for a gospel label called Versity, which, if you like contemporary gospel R&B, they're well worth looking into. But again, this is where I kind of look at where when we talk about Tammy Lucas and her career didn't really take off. I could say the same about Deborah Killings. Now, she got opportunities. She was on 2 major labels, 2 groups, and then she just ended up doing production, songwriting, and being backing vocalist on a lot of other records throughout the 90s. And you could say, why didn't her career take off? She had the opportunities, you know, and it didn't happen for her. And I just think Deborah Killings, very unsung. But if you want an album with 3 or 4 New Jack cuts on, a couple of really solid mid-tempos, and a couple of really good ballads, this is worth investigating. It's a great album, this. And not many people have it or even talk about it. Check it out. You can get it for pennies. I'm telling you, 99 cents probably that.
Sheldon, do you remember it at all? Or?
I know. I'm telling you, Stevie got some gems, man.
Yeah, he's just picking up stuff.
Got some gems. I'm gonna have to go to Discogs and
You'll love this album. You'll love it. You'll love the soul tracks on it, definitely.
Yeah, Deborah does a lot of work for. She's out of Atlanta, so she does a lot of work. With LaFace as well.
That's
as Dallas Austin.
Started, so go back to that Modest Folk album, please. Do that for me, you Jackers.
Okay, Sheldon, what about yourself? What's number 2 for you?
Okay, I want to shout out to Colin Mills. He's throwing some stuff at us, definitely on point. So I see you, Colin. With a lot of your posts there, a lot of great posts you got there, man. Mine is going to be the New Formula by Today.
Ooh. Take a deep breath for me because I know how good these albums are.
Hey Stevie, you're the Stevie, you're the encyclopedia, man. Today the New Formula was mine because it seemed like they were moving. They had the New Jack Swing going on with the Freezing Spider-Man. I Got the Feeling, but it seemed like they were also trying to establish a different identity. As a matter of fact, they had the characters. That was some of the characters' early work.
Yes.
So they were working on that record, a lot of great ballads. They had about 4 or 5 great ballads. Bernard Bell had one on there. And I remember they had a record ballad called I Want to Come Back Home. That was on Quiet Storm Radio a lot. And I just think that the album, that one fell through the cracks as well. I don't know. I mean, obviously it came out on Motown. And, you're looking at all these records, man, that are coming out. So I don't know if it's promotions and we're dealing with, Jodeci's coming and, that window between, that was 91, as a matter of fact. I'm sorry. I think the new form was 90. So when you look in terms of that, it's just timing is everything. But I think that album, which kind of compares to the intro New Life album, they're both, very mature sounding, totally different from what was out. And I think that those albums, had they come out maybe a couple years, well, the New Formula had it come out a couple years later, it probably would have gained a lot of traction. Great records on that album.
It was two very, very big New Jack Swing records on that album. Two big. Obviously, Why You Getting Funky on Me, which I always felt, did Teddy Riley, even though there's no credits for him on that, I always felt he had something to do with that record.
He produced it because Gene Griffin is listed as the producer.
He held on to it.
I will when we get Mucho back, or Sprague, because Sprague was the Basic Black was the band of today. So I always forget to ask Mucho about that, because that's a Teddy production that Gene just took and got people to finish up.
Yeah, because you hear the samples. The I Get Lifted sample and other joints on there. That you can tell it was Teddy. The rhythms, drums, and of course it had come out and they just tacked it at the end because it was a soundtrack record, and they just put it at the end of the new formula. But it seemed like they were good, and I think new formula because they was going in a different direction. So the first record was like Spider-Man, and Dr. Freeze, and that's like a Poison record. That was like a Poison record.
Right, I'm just getting the album out here. I've just had to rush. Remind myself. Obviously,
Stevie,
I had to listen. I got the feeling. Massive New Jack record.
Yeah.
You listen to that record,
the 12-inch.
The way that kicks in the bass. We ain't messing here, guys. You know what I mean? That is like one of the biggest New Jack records of all time. Underrated, again. It's very underrated, though. And like you say, hold on. And it is. I'm just looking at the credits here. Wrote by Dr. Freeze. Guess who's on bass and keyboards?
Yeah.
This will surprise you, Nnamdi. Stanley Brown.
Yeah, because Stanley did say...
I didn't realize he actually played on that record.
Yeah, Stanley did say that he worked with Freeze on that track, and he also worked with Freeze on the Chop Rock stuff, playing the keyboards. Yeah.
Let Me Know was produced and wrote and produced by Bernard Bell, Dave Way on the mix, but I love that record.
Yes.
But I would say, guys, that I actually I didn't like the album because I didn't like the direction they were taking with the ballads. It felt too, because they came with New Jack, and then all of a sudden there was a switch up, and I'm thinking it felt a little too mature for me for where they were.
With the ballads.
Yeah, the ballads. Yeah, that's Why You Getting Funky on Me, and I Got the Feeling. I mean, those are big tracks, but I thought the ballads, some of them, I just felt that they were going too mature too quickly from where they were, and I think that was just me. I just felt, yeah.
Well, there you go. Right, once you get past track 5, which is the up-tempo records, you get into 3 ballads. I remember skipping these at the time. Trying to Get Over You, I Want to Come Back Home, Home Is Where You Belong. I'm going skip.
David Foster tracks.
I thought I liked Tennis Anyone. And then we go.
That was Bernard Bell.
Yeah, that was. And
then we go to tempo. We're Gonna Make Your Mind. I don't even remember. There were 2 bonus tracks on the CD. Don't remember them.
Yeah, there was.
I need, like you say, I need to go through this album again. But
yeah,
I still cherish it. It's in my racks. It's cherished. It's cherished.
But you know what it is? Also around that time, they were on Motown, and just like how the Good Girls were being marketed like the new Supremes, Today was being marketed as like the new like Four Tops. That's how they were marketing them. That's how they were framing, because they were trying to frame Motown as this next generation, and they were trying to link the old and the new. And that's kind of, that's what that was, man. But Colin talked about Shamari. I remember If You Feel the Need. I remember the video for that. I remember them. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Colin and Stevie, y'all are 90s music encyclopedia savants.
Yeah, I'll segue into Link with Shamari shortly, but carry on about the Today album.
No, I think, I mean, that was it. Okay, so I think I'm going to. So you
what do you out of 10? What? How do you rate this album? How many points would you give it out of 10?
I would give it 5 because of the ballads.
Wow, 5 out of 10
because of the ballads.
Mate, you don't listen to your David Foster ballads.
Because of the ballads.
5 out of 10.
And maybe because because Teddy was not there, they switched their sound, and I just felt it. it didn't. I just felt that they were just in transition, and it
Tell you
just
what,
didn't.
you know what the biggest mistake I made?
What's
The
that?
biggest. I remember going in a record shop. Right, I had both the albums on vinyl. I could only afford vinyl at the time, and it wasn't until after '93 that I had more money I could go and buy the CDs. I walked in this record shop, right, and on the floor, there was this box on the floor. And do you remember when CDs came in long boxes?
Yeah, the long one. You needed a combination to rip the thing open, right? Yeah.
One minute.
Colin Mills, the R&B savant over there.
I mean, as I said, the ballad to me as I said, I just felt like I was listening to it just a couple of days ago, and I'm thinking these ballads, they're a little old school. They're just, and as I said, when you come from their first album, their debut album, it just felt like such a shock. Like, oh, we're trying to, without Teddy, let's go in a different direction, and they went too much in a different direction. So that was just my thing about the album.
But that's how I felt about the Keith Sweat second album. When Teddy was not really there, I was like,
yeah,
oh,
it
man,
kind of
where's
lost
he
its
at?
direction.
Those of you younger than 25, that is how
Not LaRue.
That is how CDs were packaged in 1990, 91. They were packaged in a long box like that.
Is that Brian Alexander Morgan?
I think so, actually. Yeah, I think it may have had some.
Was it LaRue? No, he's Rocher something.
No,
Okay.
that's Vassell Bentford, this.
Okay.
Anyway, CDs came in that, yeah. So I walked in this shop, and it was in this box. It was full of CDs in long boxes, all sealed. They were all £5 each, which is what, $5. The 2 Today albums were there in the long boxes, sealed. I had £5 in my pocket. I had to buy one and leave the other. I bought this one and I left their first album, which is now, it's a $50 CD on eBay. I mean, I ended up paying I ended up busting £40 to get it on the first album on CD.
Wow.
But I used to go back in every week going, where's that? I went back in a week later to get it. It'd gone.
Oh, wow.
Back in every week thinking, it's got to be there somewhere. It's in the States. And I never found it. And to this day, I rue it to this day. I should have bought them both. There you go.
Stevie, do you remember like when the CDs used to be in that? They were when they moved from the big long box, they were in the plastic, I guess, so you couldn't steal them.
Yeah.
They had to pop it open.
Them tough plastic security.
Yeah.
In fact, the last time I was in America, they were still in them. I remember going in a few stores like FYE and places like that, and they were still in them security things in them.
The CDs. Okay, I'm going to go to my number one.
Hold on a minute, Sheldon. What did you give that album out of 10?
I give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, that's better. That's more like
7 out of 10.
I said to me,
that's insult that 5 out of 10.
It was the ballads. I just felt disappointed. So my number one album, out of the overlooked album is Basic Black's debut album.
Oof.
Basic Black's debut album. I would go as far as.
Is it unsung?
Yes, I would go as far as saying that I actually think it is the best New Jack Swing album. I'll even tell you that the Guy album is partly New Jack and partly R&B. That Basic Black album, if it's a pure New Jack Swing album, even the ballads are good. I didn't realize how good that album was. Diesel. We're so used to Aaron's voice because he sang a lot of the hits. But I think if people knew Diesel, if that album had blown up, when they came out with She's Mine, it was blowing up, and then Gene got, I think it was blowing up, and then I think I can't remember what they said happened, but they had to pull out the single that was blown up and reprint it on, I think on Motown, because he was doing it independently. It was blown up, and then he got a deal with Motown. And instead of just allowing that to blow up, they took it off and put it back out there, so it didn't get the momentum. Not About a Party is my favorite New Jack track. I don't think, it's almost as if they studied Teddy and just did something that he wasn't doing. It should have been triple platinum, and if it had done that, and I think if Gene wasn't too, he could have seen this opportunity, especially when he left with Guy. He could have said, "Okay, I'm going to make you guys so big." That album, yeah. I don't know if you guys what your thoughts on the album, but to me that was an amazing album.
Man, that album, I'm gonna tell you,
Colin, I don't think
when they
today's
dropped,
my favorite. It's just that I just he said
I'm gonna tell you when that album dropped. I mean, obviously, I heard "She's Mine" in the club, and then when that record came, the album dropped. I bought it, and it was so good, and it was almost like because we was waiting for Guy, and we didn't know what was going on with them, and that album was like a stopgap. It was a holdover until the Guy record came out. But the album, like you said, was really, really strong. The ballads were good. I remember Special Kind of Fool really had a lot of traction on the radio. And that was like the big record, radio record off there, man. But yeah, my favorite song on that album was Whatever It Takes. But you're right. It didn't get it dropped singles from it, but for some odd reason, it just didn't gain the traction that it deserved. And you're right. I would say I would put that as far as New Jack Swing albums, that would probably be either in my top 5 or in my top 7 or top 10.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I will put it there. Yep.
I'm just thinking of the records that there's a couple of records that haunt me when I listen to them. They just haunt me. Just Don't Make Me Fall in Love haunts me to death.
Don't Make Me Fall in.
And then obviously Special Kind of Fool is just like one of the greatest early 90s vocal performances you'll ever hear on a slow jam ballad. There is, I remember at the time, and I wish it was on YouTube. I wish someone would upload it. They did a Soul by the Sea Motown. It's like all these Motown acts went to Jamaica. They all performed by the sea, and I think they performed Special Kind of Fool and I think She's Mine. And I remember watching it was on the BBC at the time, and I just wish someone had put it on YouTube just for that memory, really.
And then when you listen to the arrangement, the production on Special Kind of Fool, it kind of was almost in the vein of Keith Sweat's Riding the Wrong Way.
Yeah,
with the chords and everything.
It
had that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there was Baby Can We? There was some of the talk.
Yeah.
That Baby Can We Talk? Give Your Love to Me. I mean,
only records I didn't like on that they had Stupid, and then they had It's a Man's Thing. I didn't like those records. I didn't like those 2 records.
I'm glad they had them at the bottom. I know what you're saying. It's a man's thing. It's got masculinity value, and I think masculinity is something that's fading in today's generation, especially with the young males that are being. Where's the masculinity? But that's for another podcast, anyway.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah. Don't Make Me Fall in Love. I love that. I just love that the whole thing. Yeah. So as I said, I'm listening to it. And I'm thinking, if they had so. I mean, when you think about Basic Black, and you think about Mucho and Diesel doing 911. Just think about the creative energy they had if they had Basic Black had the opportunity to produce a second album. But Gene dropped them, and he put them in a contract they couldn't get out, and labels ran away from them just because they didn't want to deal with Gene. He just self-sabotaged the group and stuff, But anyway, yeah, Basic Black.
Give that out of 10 then.
I would give Basic Black probably a 9 out of 10. I would say it's probably the best New Jack Swing album.
9 out of 10. What do you, Sheldon? What are you saying on that album?
Yeah, I would say the same. 9. I'm gonna tell you something. When I heard the Basic Black, and then when the Future came out, I kind of moved the Basic Black album to the side. Okay, I'm all about the Future, but I'm gonna tell you, if you line up the Future and you line up the Basic Black album song for song is definitely a lot stronger. The sequencing of the record is perfect, So I would say, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I think the 2 things that spoiled the album was the album cover I have no idea why they just had these guys dressed in black, just standing there. I mean, it was the worst album cover because who wants to pick that up compared to say the Future or any other album? Then I think they should
What
have
was the
given it.
worst album cover?
Pardon?
What was the worst album cover?
No, the basic
He's
black.
saying he didn't like the
I
Basic
think
Black
just
album
just
cover.
having them standing like they were. I mean, they didn't look. New
Man,
Jack.
that's got to be the dumbest thing I ever heard on a podcast, man. What is this guy talking about, man?
Stevie, you sound like TC.
Viewers, that interview where Nnamdi gets roasted. It's coming.
TC, yeah.
Stevie sound like TC Thompson.
Yeah, that's what he did. So Colin is asking, is it better than the first guy album? And I will say, Colin, that the first guy album was an R&B album with some New Jack tracks, and I think the first New Jack guy album was the foundation, and you know when I spoke to Spec and KB from, I know also Mucho, they were in the audience when Guy came to Georgia. They were in the audience, and they ran out to Gene and said, "Can we be part of your setup?" So it's hard to. That was the classic album. I think Basic Black would tell you that they looked and studied Teddy, and they learned from him to do the Basic Black album. But I think if you said pure New Jack swing album, you know, the Guy album was an R&B album with some New Jack tracks. This was just New Jack. It was swing just throughout it, and I think from that end, if you're looking for a New Jack album, it was. But it's the Guy album it's a, you know, it's like the Keith Sweat album, Make It Last Forever, which is my favorite, also my favorite album. That's an R&B album with a New Jack track, a few New Jack tracks. So that's why I said as a New Jack swing album, I think that Basic Black.
Listen, Basic Black. That album stands up there with Guy. It stands up there with Keith Sweat. It stands up with the Bobby album. It's a top. If you're in a New Jack swing, you're putting that album in your top 10. No, you know.
Yeah.
What these young'uns say today? Is it no cap? No cap. That's going in your top 10 New Jack. No cap.
Yeah.
As I said, as a New Jack. So R&B albums are different, but this was just pure swing. Definitely swing. You want to answer Rex?
Please don't. Listen, we could spend a whole podcast answering that question. Please.
The Basic Black record,
big up Rex.
That cover, I think that cover was conceptualized by Gene. That was Gene's idea. But I think the other thing with Basic Black is that musically the songs were great, but now you started to see they didn't have an identity. They didn't have an identity because now you started to see the younger groups that were coming out, and they had like a unique identity that you could distinguish who was who. Jodeci, Tony, of course, Guy. You know, all those groups were coming out, man, and they had an identity, and those guys had a sound. So when you saw them, and you see in the videos, and they're playing instruments and all that, and you saw, Gizzo singing, but you just didn't know who they were as a group. You just knew that the music was good. And I think a lot of times, sometimes when the music can kind of it's great because the music has a long enduring quality. It lasts, but sometimes it can be, a gift and a curse because the music can overshadow your identity as a group.
Yeah. I mean, they should have had it there if we had heard from them and stuff. And yeah, I mean, the videos where Mucho and Spec start to leave their keyboards and start to dance and do the kid and play kind of stuff. If you just look at She's Mine and also
Whatever It Takes.
You just see Mucho and Spec coming in and doing their dance stuff. And I just implore you guys, just go and search Basic Black and listen to the album and tell me what your thoughts are. And we'll just leave it like that. Stevie, what's next for you?
Well, I did do a bit of digging in my rap. I knew there was going to be some serious R&B head viewers in here today. I kind of picked an album that's just after the new. Well, is it just after the New Jack era? I'm going to 1994. It's an album that people would be like, "Yeah, I remember it, but I've forgotten it, or maybe not even bought it." It goes back to what Colin we're talking about Shomari. The link here is the producers. Shomari, produced by three boys from Newark. The lead vocalist. Now, I'd forgotten about this guy until I listened back to the album, and I'm putting this lead vocalist. He's up there with Diesel. He's up there with Aaron Hall. He's up there with R. Kelly. Serious. I know you guys have probably not even heard this album, but when you hear this guy sing, I got to vouch for this guy. 1994, they were called N2U. They were signed to Arista Records. Yeah, they made one album only. And believe me, folks, this album is an absolute gem. I'm going to go through my notes here. Members, Chris Herbert, who was the brother of Vincent Herbert. And I was doing a bit more digging. I believe that Chris Herbert was a member of does anyone remember the Motown group, Blaze? They're like a house group. Don't know if you remember them? Yeah. He was part of Blaze. The lead vocalist was a guy called Chucky Howard. I'll come on to him in a minute. There's another guy called Don Carlis, and there's another guy called Craig Hill. What I did find out about Chucky, the lead vocalist, he actually sang on a duet in 1989. Do anyone remember Rhonda Clark? She was signed to Taboo Records.
No, I don't remember her.
She had a couple of albums on Taboo Records, but he did a duet with her on Rhonda Clark's debut album, which you want to check it out. It's called You're My Everything. Producers on the album were the three boys, which were made up of Vincent Herbert, Kiama Griffin, Ike Lee, Ben Garrison, who did a lot of work with Bobby Brown. And then you've got the guys, Reggie and Ronnie Burrell. I don't know if you remember Burrell from the late 80s. They had an album out as well, which is well worth checking out. There was 3 singles released. There Will Never Be, which got a big Dave Jam Hall remix. There was You Don't Have to Cry, which I think got played on radio. And I think the biggest single was I Miss You. That seemed to get a lot of airplay on like R&B radio in America, but also on backing vocals, some of you may remember an artist called Joya, because after that, a few years later, she put out a solo album. She's on backing vocals. But in terms of like up-tempo, R&B, New Jack, there's a track on here called Someone For Me, which it's an incredible record. He's very Charlie Wilson in his vocal. Once you hear it, you'll be like, yeah, I can hear the Charlie Wilson influence, but good album, this solid album. Go buy this album. Again, cost you a couple of dollars, probably cheaper than the price of a latte coffee in Starbucks now, this album, but well worth checking out. Forgotten mid-90s gem, this.
Yeah, Kurt, yeah, I hear what you're saying with Teddy and the Kumo D records. He was a saving grace. It allowed Kumo D to be, the only rapper from the generation that he came from to go into that new second generation of artists, and it gave Kumo D a lot of versatility. Like Heavy D, he could do the R&B tours and the rap tours. So yeah. Shout out to Kurt M.
Yeah, and Rex, I think Teddy, none of us would disagree. I mean, he's, despite our sort of strange sort of top 20 list last week, we all have Teddy as a number one producer, and he just got into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He is an innovator, and he gets the respect. But we just think he did miss his way in the mid-90s, trying to not show what the sound he was chasing. But I mean, Stevie, what's great is that you are coming up with albums that most people might have overlooked, but that's part of what we're doing today. So that's a good one. Sheldon, what about your number 3?
Loose Ends, 1990s. Look how long.
Ooh.
Loose Ends, great transition in the New Jack Swing, because basically they had a unique, slick type of R&B sound that was like using the Jam and Lewis 808 drum machine.
Was that the one that says "Don't Be a Fool"? Was that the album?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Had Try My Love, and I don't. What's the one? I don't want to be something. I don't want to be a fool. I don't want to be a fool. That record it actually sampled Guy's Groove Me, but it was dope how Carl McIntosh actually incorporated the New Jack Swing sound into the music. Loose Ends actually they kind of like split up. The other two members they didn't want to go in the direction that he was going into, so he basically kind of went in that direction. Got two other female singers, but that was kind of the album that kind of like fell through the cracks. But I loved how he incorporated New Jack Swing, updated the sound. Again, Try My Love. Listen to that record, and you can hear it just swing. It's got the dope swing, got the dope multi-track background lead vocals, and I Don't Want to Be a Fool. That it's just love it, man.
Yeah,
and then he has the same. He's got the great songwriting, rap. He's not writing. The songwriting didn't regress. The songwriting stayed the same. Stories, really clever lines and whatnot, but the tracks, New Jack, perfect.
Yeah, when that album came out, the Don't Be a Fool.
So look how long.
I was in Nigeria when that single came out, and it was massive. Yeah, that was a massive single. So I don't know if Sheldon did. Stevie, was it big here in the UK?
Well, from because I do remember that album well, because what was actually going on with that album was this. They'd obviously throughout the 80s they'd worked with Nick Martinelli who gave them that 808 mid-tempo soul R&B groove, and by the year 1990 came around, they kind of done away with that sound. The other big elephant in the room was there was no Jane Eugene on vocals, so Carl McIntosh had to find some new singers, and they looked at what was going on in 1990. Obviously, there was the New Jack sound, but what was also bubbling here in the UK, in towns like Manchester, Birmingham, London, was street soul, which was more mid-tempo, more bass heavy, more Caribbean reggae, soul influenced. And there is one of the singles they released off that, there was a B-side. It was an instrumental. And I remember a lot of the pirate radio stations were playing this instrumental, and it ended up on, there was a guy called Danny Madden. He put an album out on Giant Records. There's a track called Love Controversy. I think Sheldon wants to talk, but we can't hear him.
Oh, Sheldon, yeah, we can't hear you. Your sound has gone off. Check if you're on mute. No, we can't hear you, Sheldon. Yeah. No, I can't hear you. Yeah. But go ahead, Stevie.
That album was it got a lot of club plays on the UK soul scene, got a lot of pirate radio plays, but didn't pick up national. I think Don't Be a Fool did get some minor like national radio play, but I would see that as more as like we're in the midst of UK street soul, and that album is like you say soul to soul, that kind of sound. It defines that sound for me. But there was two really good like New Jack inspired tracks on it, which Sheldon talked about. Try My Love, and what's the other one? I forgot the other one. But
no, we can't hear you, Sheldon.
I Don't Need to Love. That was it. I Don't Need to Love. Yeah, but like I said, the elephant in the room was Jane Eugene. She was so hard to replace.
Yeah,
as a singer. But props to Sheldon for picking that album out. And if you can get the singles, they've all got B-sides on them as well, which are really strong. Al McIntosh, though, investigate him as a UK producer. His back catalogue is amazing.
Well, I it's always a little touchy for me when you mention his name, because I had an interview scheduled with him, and the team, I sent them the link and everything. For somehow they didn't get it. Then they rang me up and maybe 30 minutes before the live interview says, "Where's the link? What kind of unprofessional?" And I said, "Look, I sent it to you," and I forwarded them. He logs on. I'm about to bring him on, and he drops off, and he doesn't do the interview, and so I'm kind of bitter. And this was so.
There is a whole crop of UK producer artists from that period that I do feel we should hear the story, like Carl McIntosh, like Don, Misha Paris.
And he had a new album that they were promoting. So that's when I was in. They just had a new album that they were promoting. So, yeah. No, yeah, we can't hear you, Sheldon. I'm not sure what's happening.
Have you muted him?
No, because I took you off and brought you back in to see if it would check your voice now. If it's no, we can't hear you now. No. So I don't know if you want to go out and come back in, but just while he's coming in, because we do need you on there. He did. Colin says I did back and forth on the award show. Okay, was it recently, Colin, that you did the back and vocals for them? Oh, okay. Can you see that? Colin's based out in Birmingham, and he did back and vocals with Loose Ends. Wow. Yeah. So it's okay.
That's overall some really good picks we picked out tonight. That.
Yeah, I mean, are you back, Sheldon? No. What happened to your voice, your volume? Because it just went off and then stuff. Do you know there's one album that I was fighting to put on? Abstract's debut album.
Yeah. Mate, well, hold on a minute. We're going to do another.
Okay.
One of this. So just hold. Keep them bullets. Keep them ready for another one.
Yeah, but that was I was fighting because I didn't know if I was going to put 911 on because they didn't officially release it, and I said okay, I had Abstract on there, and just to say. He had it on his list as well. So Sheldon had Abstract on his list as well. And just to say, the only problem I had with the album was probably that I think they should have put the ballads at the end and it should have just been it should have been an up-tempo new. You know what? I listened to the album and I realized how come Teddy was not number one because I'm listening to the album, I'm listening to today's album, and I'm listening to everything else. I'm thinking he was just putting out so much stuff in such a short period of time. If anyone hasn't checked Abstract,
I mean, the Abstract was the lead-off single, Right High, brilliant record.
You know the and what Old School Flavors just said about that number one album, this the first single on the album. I've got it here. Looking out for number one.
Yeah,
it sampled Just Got Paid. If that was the first single that was released, it would have blown up. I mean, that's the energy with that is. I don't know. That's the thing I said.
Bernard Bell had a lot to do with that record as well.
Maybe the writing, but the production was Teddy, and I'm thinking if they just Right Type was okay, but it was not as big as that track. That track.
You know what Do you know what my favorite track on that album was?
Which one?
It's actually a cover version. You need to go back and listen to it. It's a track called Strategy.
Oh, okay. I remember that Strategy. Okay.
Steve Sheldon knows because he knows who originally did that. It was originally done by Archie Bell and the Drells. Yeah, late 70s. I thought they did a good New Jack Swing cover version of it. The soulers, those 70 soul, they won't be happy with me saying that, but I thought it was a good cover version.
No, it was. No, the Strategy was great.
I like the ballads as well. I did like the ballads on the album.
Yeah, the only one I thought because somebody Mike McHale, who if you ever Jeffers, who he puts a lot of albums up on YouTube, and he's got in touch with me to say that I'll Be Your Friend, which was written and produced by Bernard Bell, was supposed to feature Aaron Hall, but this is just as the split happened, and Aaron didn't do it. So Bernard stepped in. I think that as much as it was a good ballad track, I think if it had Aaron or Diesel, it would have propelled that particular track forward. But my issue with that album, that's it. My issue with that album was that the ballad should have just been at the end. So it should have just been the track, the hype, the dance track. Just
Yeah, I'll Be Up. It featured Bernard Bell on vocals.
yeah.
Damn, I'm lucky. I haven't listened to this album for a while. Like Sleaze, that was quite. I like that one.
Yeah, make me sweat.
Yeah.
I mean,
I forgot one more. Listen to Bugging Over You. I got me bugging over you.
Yeah, you got me bugging over you.
Yeah.
Listen to that. If you listen to the album, it should have been a New Jack Dance album. It should have been a New Jack Dance album.
And they released what they released, right? I think they only released 2 records. Right and Hype, and the one I was disappointed with, You Are the Party, I'm the Fun. Didn't like that record too. And
no, it should have been. That's what I'm saying. That it was very hard for me to. I wanted to put it in there because it was exactly the kind of stuff where it was a kind. Sheldon, we need you to come out because we can't have you meet. You know, you've got people asking about stuff, and so we need you to.
Anyway, we're nearly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Deja. I mean, that was another one. So Deja was.
Okay, let's save these. Let's save these for another one. We'll do another 3 soon.
Yeah, but just as Kurt was asking about the group Deja's album, and signed by Gene. I think they were on Virgin, and Teddy did all those production.
The Deja album, yeah.
Yeah, the Deja album. Let me see.
Here it is.
Colin said, never heard Bernard Bell sing songs. So yeah, check it out. Oh, you got the Deja. You got the Deja album.
Underneath me here, I've got my CD box, and it's my New Jack Swing CD box. There's about 100 CDs in here of all the main New Jack albums we'd end up talking about. So they're pretty much to hand.
Yeah, and then you've got the Eminem record, which was Marshall.
That I could have picked that one tonight. Eminem could have picked that.
Sheldon, you got your voice back or? No, goodness, I'm not sure what happened to it, but anyway. But guys, yeah, you know what? We don't have Sheldon, which is a definitely shame. But we're going to be off for a couple of weeks, probably back in September.
Don't get lost in Germany, will you? Eh?
Yeah. So I'm going on a road trip around Europe. Stevie's going on his own trip. Sheldon's as well, and so. But that's why we put another one. So episode 12 will be back in September. Guys, we will still be looking at your list of. We're going to get another 3-track albums that we think were unsung. It's a pity that we did mention about Eminem because I haven't never even heard the Eminem album. So Marsha and Mary Brown, but both so we're going to be featuring some other track albums. So it'd be great if you listen to them. But it's good that you guys have put a lot of contributed throughout this podcast today. It's helpful because it is us and you.
Definitely. Respect to everyone who's watched and commented. I mean, it's been quite busy tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a pity with Sheldon's sound, and because it's always good for me to listen to Stevie and Sheldon dig out stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm here sitting as a learner here, just understanding the deep stuff that they've got and stuff. But anyway, can we hear you, Sheldon? Before?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. So you want to say something? We are wrapping up, but was there anything you wanted to say about?
No, I'm good. What were you saying toward the end? So we're gonna be. I lost you. Off for 2 weeks. What's up?
Yeah, I'm off for 2 weeks, and Stevie's off as well. So we'll be probably back in September for episode 12. We've got definitely bring out some other albums. Because we were just saying how the guys have just been contributing with some bangers and albums that we've not. So it's been great, and we're going to bring up some new ones and as well down later on.
That's what I'm just looking at old school flavor. He mentions this duo called Sweet and Low. They were like a female duo. There's a track on that album called Love Complicated. Oh, just oh my gosh.
You know, one of the things that we've been doing is the fact that it by doing this, people. I hope you go out and start listening to the albums and check them out, because I hadn't listened to the full Abstract album until the last week, and I didn't realize how good it was. So I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, my goodness, how come this wasn't bigger? And so this is, what happens when we're talking about these things. So some of the things that Stevie's bringing up and Sheldon's bringing up, I'm going to go back, listen to them, and think, wow, I didn't realize that. So it is celebrating music, New Jack Swing, R&B, old school, but it is trying to make sure that you guys check these things out and celebrate the music as well. So please, when we come back, episode 12, keep giving us stuff.
And then for a lot of folks from our last episode on YouTube, they were typing in their list and all that. So continue to do that. When you review this podcast,
we do read the comments. We do read the comments.
Yeah. Put your list. We're kind of curious to see what you have, and just be keeping the music alive. So please do.
Yeah, we definitely do so. Yeah. And just for record, Teddy Riley is my favorite producer, so I can go hard on him because he knows I'm his favorite. That he's my favorite.
You didn't mention that in the last podcast.
Well, yeah, it was strange that
we couldn't get past David Foster, really.
It was strange, but Teddy, on the real, and we're gonna redo that again. We're gonna do that again in the fall.
We're not gonna.
So that we'll get a chance to do the real one. But yeah, so guys, hopefully,
I'm going to mention Eddie F. A shout to Eddie F. I'll tell you why, because he followed me on IG this week.
Yeah.
Thank you for the follow, sir. I really appreciate that. Probably because I played his new Afrobeats record on the radio. He's probably very happy with that.
Yeah, he's planning on doing a number of things, and hopefully. He will. Eddie F. will. He's somebody that I'm trying to get this fall, as well as Big Bub, and as well as Christopher Williams and stuff. But
let's shout Karen White as well, your friend. She's very active and with the chat this week.
Karen White's probably one of she's a big supporter. But as I said, anyone looking for an amazing show, if you're in the States, check out Karen White.
I'll tell you a miss we've not spoke to for a while, actually. Jackie McGee. We need to get her back on, man. Jackie McGee.
We will. Yeah, we will. We'll get him back on. But anyway, guys, we as I said, from Stevie, Sheldon, and myself, it means a lot that you guys have been involved. You've been watching and commenting. It makes it lively for us, and so we appreciate it. And as I said, we can't wait to come back big and stronger. In September, so hopefully you guys have a good rest of August, and we'll definitely be able to see you guys in August. Take care.
Good night. Goodbye.
Have a good one, Colin. Peace. Singing background with loose ends that blew me away.